Hello everyone, and this is going to be a series of videos on how to create something like a grassland or like a meadow in Houdini from scratch. So not only are we going to look at the scattering system or how to build a scattering system, but we'll also build every single element from scratch in Houdini. So there are four things here. So you have the grass, the big and small. You have the big flowers, and then you have the small flowers. And if you zoom in closer, then you also have like some clovers. Okay, so those are the four things that we're going to build. And we'll also give them enough sort of parameters that you can, when you scatter them around, they kind of modify. So if you look at the flowers here, like some of them are open and some of them are closed. So you can sort of, you should be able to get enough variation out of it. Plus, like you can see like, some of these big flowers and some of these small flowers. So you should be able to, we'll create enough parameters in there that you can sort of make, any kind of changes that you want. The whole thing is currently based on point colors, even though they have UVs. So I haven't really applied any textures to this. If you take it into Solaris or like LOPS and you hit render, it'll pretty much just render, exactly the way it is without any issues. But everything is UV mapped. So if you want to apply textures to it, like that's completely up to you. Also, the techniques that we'll be learning are applicable, in general. So any render engine that supports packed primitives should be able to render this. Or if you want to export it to Unreal, you should be able to export it to Unreal as well. Okay, it does get pretty heavy. Like this is a lot of packed primitives. But yeah, the system is fully open, so you should be able to modify it, any which way you want to. Okay, so to get started in this lesson, we're going to take a look at how to make the grass, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and I'm going to like lower the scene polygon limit to 50 million. Like I'd made it 500 so that you could see the whole scene, but it gets pretty slow to navigate. Okay, I wish Houdini could handle like geometry counts like Clarice, like that would have been cool. But anyways, this scene is not important right now. So I'll just minimize this and we'll start off a brand new scene. And I'll create a new geometry and I'll call it, let's call it grasslands. Because all of this is going to be in like a single file anyways. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is I'll just create a line and we'll give it about 8 points. You don't need too many because it like at that density, unless you're going to do like a super detailed close-up, then you might want to up the geometry count. But otherwise, if it's like a distant enough shot, 8 or 9 points is good enough. Okay, like as I said, like if it gets too close, then you'll be able to see the segmentation in the line when you bend it. But if it's far enough away, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we'll take a bend. And I need to adjust this, so like it should be in the x-axis, the up vector, and the capture direction should be in the y. Okay, and I'll just take the length and do copy parameter and paste it to the capture length. So this should give me my basic grass, okay, or my basic initial strand. Now I want to do a couple of things here, which is I want to control the bend using an attribute. So what we'll do is we're going to take a resample node. The resample node won't add any points. Okay, so turn off the segment length and just turn on curve view attribute. Okay, now take a float, take an attribute and just float, and we'll call it, let's call it bend control, or let's call it bend attribute. And we'll call this bend, and we're going to say set always, and this will be remap, and we are going to remap the curve view. Now what you can do is if you come into the bend, and if I change the scaling to scale by attribute and we call this bend, so this is what will happen. Okay, so what's happening now is if I take this value, see, I can control the bend value from here. So the advantage of this is that you can sort of control the shape of it. Like, see, if I want to do something like this, which is not what I want to do, but you can do things like that, like, see. So you can get like really weird, bent shapes if you want. Okay, so this is fine. This is like step one. The next thing we want is we want a shape. So the shape should be like a V. So I'll take another line and I'll give it 3 points. And let's do a couple of things. So firstly, I'll just take a group and I'll select, this is point number 1. So we'll select point number 1. I'll call it mid and we'll select points. And I'll take a transform and we'll just move mid in the X direction. Okay, so we'll do this. The next thing is take an axis align. So in the lab tools, you have something called the labs axis align. Make sure you have the lab tools installed. Like there is stuff in here that will 100% require the lab tools. If you don't have it, it's like, just install the lab tools. Okay, and we'll take the Y and we'll make it centered. Okay, so everything should be centered. Okay, so this is fine. This is good. Then take a sweep and we'll have to sweep this. So taken two transforms here. One is for rotation and the other one is for scale. Because this is too huge, like our line is very small. Okay, so we will have to scale it down. So yeah, so this comes in here, this goes in there. And then, yeah, this is, actually it worked. So we don't need to worry about it. Okay, so just scale it down enough. So it's not, yeah, I think this is good. If you don't want to see the back faces to be like this dark tinted blue, what you can do is press D and in the markers, you have this thing called tint back faces. So you can turn that off. Okay, so it won't tint the back faces. Usually it's good, but in this case, I don't want it. Okay, so this is fine. Now let's also sort of define the shape of it. So we can, because the curve view attribute is already there, I can take another float and this will be p scale. So the default, it goes to p scale. And we'll do set always and we'll do remap attribute curve view and then just flip it. So there you go. Okay. And I can just adjust this, so we can do like B-spline and this should also be B-spline. I don't want it to be like an absolute point or something. Just increase it a little bit like that. Yeah, and I want it smaller still. So yeah, okay, I think this is good. What we can also do is let's take a resample here and I just want to resample it a bit. Yeah, so we have some points in the middle. Not those many, just sort of lower it. Yeah, I think that should be good enough. Okay, now let's also give it some coloring because we will need the coloring. Just make the shape like this. There you go. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay. I'll keep it to flat shaded for now so we can see the coloring. I'll make it dark. Okay, so just take a color node and set it to ramp from attribute curve view. This will be like a light brown and this will be a pale green or a yellowish green. Okay, so this is fine. Okay, now what we want to do is I also want to give it some color on the edges. Okay, so just take a group node and we'll call this edge and turn this to points, enable include by edges and turn on the last option which says unshared edges. Okay, so we'll get this. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we should be here. Sorry. Yeah, this should be after the sweep, not before the sweep. Yeah, so after the sweep. So we have like these edges and then just take a color node and just come to edge. See, there you go. So you get like this little color on the edges and we can make it like slightly brownish or something like that. Yeah, this looks good later on. Yeah, if we want, like we can control the depth of this a little bit more. So like if you push it in, see, so you can sort of, Like if I make it 0.5, see, so that's like really deep. Okay, so you have like enough control on this that you can, you know, adjust the shape of it any which way you want. Okay, we'll also do one more thing with this with the sweep, which is I'll give it a slight bit of a twist. So if I come in here to rotation, I can just take this partial twist and give it like a slight bit of a twist. So it looks a little bit like when you do a render of it, it'll look better, you know, like, yeah, I think this is okay. Okay, so this is good. Like we have our basic, you know, grass shape done. Now let's set up the basic grass. Okay, I still want to scale it down a bit. Yeah, let's just call this scale and 0.04. Yeah, I think this is good. Okay, now for the scattering of it, like what we want is we want the grass to be like in a circular bunch. Okay, but I don't want it to emerge from one point. Like usually grass emerges from one point. So you can do that, like that's not a problem. But in our case, because we're going to scatter it and I don't particularly care about a single bunch of it, it should look good when it's just scattered in quantity. So we're going to keep it slightly distanced. Okay, like they're all going to overlap anyway. So when it overlaps, it looks fine. Okay, so I'll take a circle and I'm going to do two things with this. So I'll take the circle, do a ZX and make it small. So I think that should be good enough. And we'll increase the number of divisions. And I'm going to do an orientation along curve. First, we'll just set up the normals. Okay, so I'm going to take a copy to points and we'll just copy this. We might need to reverse it, because usually if you look at a circle, the normals face downwards. Okay, so make sure that you reverse it. So the normals are facing upwards. Okay, and so we can take this and there you go. Okay, and then we're going to have to adjust this a bit. So take additional rotation and yeah, just there we go. Okay, so 180 is fine. So this is good. Okay, so we can, like, you know, adjust this and it gives you. You can make a basket with this if you want, you know, like a woven basket. Okay, but this is not what we want. Okay, we're going to keep this here. I'm going to take this circle. I'll do a remesh. And actually the remesh is not really important. I don't know why I took it, but we'll just take it anyways. Okay, and I'll make it slightly small. And then I'm going to scatter some points on this. So take a scatter and make it about like 7 or 8 points and lower the relax iterations. Yeah. And what it will do is it's going to pick up the normals from here. Like if I just plug this in, nothing is going to happen. They're just all going to stay like that. But what we want is, we want these scattered points, but they should pick up the orientation from here. So just take a transfer. So take an attribute transfer after the scatter and just plug this in. See, so what's going to happen is, like we have these scattered points, but they're picking up the rotation from, you know, like that orientation along curve. Okay, so which is nice. Okay, now we set up some basic things here. So the first thing is we need some random scaling. So again, take a float. Okay. Now, okay, you can do a bunch of things here. So firstly, let's say what we want is, instead of random scaling, we want the ones in the middle to be taller and the ones on the edges to be smaller. So what I can do is, on this scatter, like after we've done this, I'm going to take a sort and we're going to number them going from center out. So just take this sort and set it to proximity to point. So what should happen is, if I look at the point number, see, so we're getting, like, you know, going outwards. Then take a wrangle node and we're going to create a gradient based on the point numbers divided by the total number of points. Okay, so that gives you a value going from 0 to 1. Okay, so we're going to say at t-scale is equal to, or let's do one thing, let's create a new one. We'll call it f at g. I don't know. Okay, maybe I should give better names, but nothing comes to mind right now. So we'll do at pt num divided by, now you have to convert one of them to a float because they're both integers. So just type in float of at num pt. You can go either ways. You can do a float of pt num divided by num pt, or you can go the other way. Either ways is fine. Okay, and then I can take a attribute at just float, and let's set this to p scale. The reason I'm doing it this way is because the p scale, like the attribute adjust nodes, give you like more control on things. So, you know, might as well just use that. So we'll do it to set always, and I'll do remap attribute, and I'll set it to what was it called, G. Yeah, there you go. See, so what's happening is, like right now it's reverse. So come in here and do a 1 minus. There you go. See, so the edges are smaller and these are bigger, and in here I can remap it a bit. So this is good. Okay, this is like step number 1. The second thing I want to do is I want the center ones to be more straight and the outer ones to bend more. And that is where, like, you know, this attribute that we had created is going to be useful. So we can control this value. Okay, so what I want is that the outer ones should bend more, and then the inner ones should, you know, be sort of standing. So come in here, and in order to do this, we'll have to do it through a for each. Okay, so just take a for each. So we'll do a for each point, and I'll just rename this to A. Okay, the points come in here, and then this goes out. Now take a second attribute at just float, and we'll call it as bend control. And this will also use G. Okay, so this will also be set it to always and do remap attribute. We'll call this as bend, and it will remap G. What you need to do is fairly simple. Okay, so just come in here. Let me just press L. Yeah, okay, I think that's better. Come to the bend attribute. Let's give these some color. And what I want to do is we want to control the max value, okay, using like the bend attribute being created there. So just come in here and come to the max value and type in point, and you need 4 things. So firstly, which node is it going to? So we're going to for each A. Then the point number is 0 because you're inside a for each. Then the attribute name, so the attribute name is bend, and then it should be 0 because it's a float. And there you go. Okay, now we need to reverse it again. So because I think the outer ones are straighter and the inner ones are bending. So what we want to do is just flip this. There you go. See. So now what happens is, like, if I take this, see, the outer ones bend and the inner ones bend a little bit. Okay, so you have like full control on this. And so if I take this scatter and I change the seed value, see, you have like nice little graphs that you can control. Okay, and here is the cool bit about this, right? If I take a carve in here and I carve the orientation along curve, here comes the fun bit. Like if you want all of them to be in one direction, like windswept grass, you can actually just take this and turn on both of these and see, there you go. Okay. See, so you can actually like control the rotation of it based on this. So yeah, we'll minimize this, but it is useful. Like you can keep this in here. Okay, so this is your, this is your basic grass. So if you want, like, if you don't want the p scale to be based on, the G value that we had created, we can always just set it to like random. That is also fine. But in this case, we don't really want that. What you can do is you can sort of do multiples of these, right? So we can do this p scale, and then I can do another attribute at just float, and we'll call it p scale random. And this can add to that. So we can do a random here. See, so, maybe we can just do like a little bit like that. Okay, so you can get like a little bit of randomization, which then if you adjust it, see, so you get like, a little more variation on the whole thing. And we can open up the circle a bit more so you can get more, so all of that is completely up to you. And if you increase the scatter points a lot, then you can get like, a lot of grass. We don't want that much, because generally about 8 or 9 is good enough. Okay, because once you scatter like 10,000 of these, everything looks fine. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so now as a final thing, let's say we want to create like, 4 variations of this. Let's say I want to create like small ones and big ones. So what I can do is I can create a line, and we're going to do a pack. Okay, so we'll do a pack here, and they're going to be copied onto this line. So let's do z-axis, and take about 4 of these, and I can do a copy to points, but we'll also take this through a for each so that we can control it. Okay, so we'll do for each point, and let's call this B, and for now I'll just do a basic copy. So we have this. Okay, so this is fine. Okay, now I can do a bunch of things here. Okay, so first of all, I can put like, let's say if I want random rotation. So one of the cool things you can do is you can do like a scatter and align on this point. Okay, and plug it into both, set the mode to add attribute, and we can, control this. And we can also control, now if this is not rotating because this doesn't have normals. Okay, so you can right click here, and I can take a wrangle node, and I can just give it normals in the y-axis. So I can say at n is equal to, do a set, and 0, 1, 0, and semicolon. So this, see, so now they're like, you can have them rotated around like that. Okay, so even this is enough, right? Like if you just want that, you can do that. Okay, but let's say we want to start with the most basic thing, which is, let's modify the seed value for the scatter. Okay, so let's make this yellow as well. So again, just take a float, attribute just float. This will be based on random values, so I can set it to set always. We'll call it seed and random. Okay, and let's do like 0 to 10. And what you can do is you can come into the scatter, and I can do point dot slash for each b comma 0 comma seed comma 0, and there you go. So each one you are getting like a different. So if I come in here and I change it, see, so you get different results. Okay, another thing we can do is, let's say if I want, I can do like a color adjust. So do like do an adjust color before the pack. Okay, turn off adjust value, and we have enable color correction. So turn on hue, and see, so we have like light green, and then we can go more towards, let's say, yeah, I think this is good enough. So let's say we want to go from like 0 to maybe 20. I think 20 should be good. Okay, so what I can do is, let's say like these ones should be light green, and these should remain the color where they are. Okay, so again, after the line over here, let's put in a resample, and we're going to calculate curve view again, because we'll base it on the curve view. Okay, so let's just plug that in, and now let's take another float value. Let me just save this file. So we'll take another float, and we'll call it let's call it color, yeah, and set it to random. But what I want to do is, sorry, don't set it to random, set it to remap attribute, and we'll use curve view. Okay, and now what I want to do is, these ones should be, let's say these ones should be like light green, and then these should remain the color where they are. So we want to go from 0 to 10. Okay, and let's do one thing. Let's take this same thing here. So do Control C. This value is called COL. Okay, so come into the attribute adjust color, and we'll plug that in, and we'll change it to COL. And you're seeing some color change, but what we'll do is we'll come in here, and I'm going to, demarcate it like that, and let's make it 50. Yeah, there you go. See, so you're seeing like, so those two are different colors and these two are different colors. Let's make it 30. I think 30 should be good enough. There you go. See, so we have like two of these, okay, which is nice. Let's flip it. Okay. Let's as a final thing, let's say what you want is like these light green ones shouldn't bend as much. Okay, and these dark green ones should bend. Okay, so we'll take another one here. Okay. I like these attribute adjust float nodes because earlier all of this you had to type in like a massive attribute triangle, and then make your ramps and do all of that stuff. This is like, it gives you a lot of ready-made options. The only problem is that it clamps the values between like whatever range you give it. So that's a little irritating. Let's call this color control. Let's call it seed control, and this will be bend control. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll call it bend C. Okay, and what we want to do is we'll do it to set always. Again, remap attribute and curve view. Now, how do you control that? Okay, so this is where we're going to do something else. So after this bend attribute, okay, like on the line here, we'll take another attribute adjust float. We'll call this as bend multiplier. And this will be on multiply on a constant value. So if I just drop this in, this will also be called bend. Okay, so it's the same attribute. And this is what happens. If you drop this in, the bending will go away. Okay, because now the overall bend is being controlled by this one value. Okay, so which is pretty cool, right? So now what we can do is, I can take this, like, because I don't want to type again. Okay, I'll just do a copy, Control C here, and we'll put in bend C in this multiplier node. So Control V, and this will be called as bend C. And see, there you go. So now what's happening is those two don't bend. Okay, like maybe we can just control it specifically. Okay, so we can say like this bends a little bit, and again we'll keep it like that here, like this. See, so those bend to a full value or more, and these only bend like a little bit. And if we want as a final thing, we can do another attribute adjust float, and maybe like these two should be small and these two should be big. So I can just put in like a p scale here, and we'll do a multiply because we're already generating p scale from the scatter and align. Okay, so set it to multiply, again remap attribute, take curve view. Yeah, and so these will be like, again we'll just fix it like this. There you go. So these will be big and those will be small. And that gives me like a fully customizable, adjustable thing. So I can control the, the line height, what I want, and I can control, like I have values, that are controlling everything now. Okay, so I can control the scatter amount. So I can come in here, okay, and we can change like the seed value. So if I randomize this, you can change the seed value. You can also create a control for the number of, strands that you want. So currently all of them have 9 strands, but if you want, you can change that as well. So maybe if you want it somewhere between like 6 and 9, we can do those things. So you can create as many controls as you want. Like that's completely up to you. So let's call it count. Okay, and we'll keep it to. It should be an integer, but it doesn't matter. Okay, let's call it count. Yeah, and this should be, let's say, from 6 to 10. And we'll come back to the scatter. I'll do Control C, come in here, Control V, and we'll call this count. There you go. See, so now you have, except this shouldn't be on remap attribute. We'll keep it to random. Okay, sorry, wrong one. Yeah, go there to count, and we'll keep it to random. Yeah, see, so what we're doing is we can just, you know, randomly have different numbers. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So this is how we create, like, you know, basic grass. Okay, now let's do one thing. Before I close this lesson, we'll just do a simple scatter. Okay, so I'm going to take a circle. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll just pick up the pack value from here. Like, I have this one grass, which is fine. Okay, so let's just take a circle just to show you what we can do with this. Okay, and or actually fine, like we can pick this. Now what you want to do is they should all be at the same location. So just take this line value and make it 0. Okay, so we just have like all of them in one place. And then let's say I just want the last two. Like these are all packed anyways, but I just want like 3 and 4. So I'll just take a blast and I just want 3 and 4. Okay, so 3 and 4 and do delete, 2 and 3. Yeah, and to delete non-selected. So I just have like the big ones. Okay, now what you want to do is take an enumerate, so it will get like a variant or it will get like an attribute, an integer attribute, which is counting the numbers. Okay, because we're going to use like a variant to sort of, you know, copy that around. So now let's take a circle and we'll do like a ZX plane. I'll make it big and I'll increase the number of points. Okay, let's do a remesh. And what I can do is I can just take, for now, I'll just take a mountain sop. And yeah, let's just increase the element size and I'll increase the value. Okay, let's lower the remesh so we get a little more detail on this. Yeah. Okay, now let's take a scatter and we'll give it about, say, yeah, I think that's fine. Let's take a point node and we'll add some normals to this. Sorry, not a point node. Take a normal node. Yeah, so just take a normal node and keep it to points. Okay. Okay, then take a scatter align. Yeah, also put in a reverse here, like the way we had done before. Yeah. So plug it into both. And I'll set this to add attributes. Let's take a simple float. We can take a noise float, that should also be fine. And I'm going to set this to p scale. Yeah, we'll do set. Okay. And now we want both of these to be copied, you know, like randomly. So take an integer node. So attribute is just integer. This will be kept to variant because this is also kept to variant. And we just want 0 and 1. Okay, so keep it to random, set always, and 0 and 1. Okay. And now I can just come into copy to points. And if I've done everything properly, it should work. So just turn on variant here and plug that in. And there you go. Okay, so what you want to do is come into scatter and align and take this angle, you know, make it like 100%. We can also give it a little bit of scattering like this. Okay, the scaling isn't really working, which is fine, which is weird actually. The scaling should work. Generally it does. Okay, yeah, sorry, this is at set. So change it to add or multiply. I think multiply should be fine. Yeah, see. So set this to multiply, we'll adjust the element size, there you go, see. And we can kind of control it a little bit if we want, see, like that. And you can sort of move it around. We'll need more points, so let's make it around like, yeah, I think that should be good. Let's do one thing, let's set it to min max so we can control, how much it is. And let me just bring in like some basic lighting. Okay, so I'll just take an environment light and I'll set it to the map that I generally use. Yeah, there you go, see, that looks better. Okay. And I can come into, like, we'll turn that off and I'll set the lights, make it around 512, so you have a little bit more. Increase the samples, see, so that looks nice. What we can do is we can come in here, I should increase the thickness a little bit of the grass. So I can come into the scale and maybe make it 0.07. Yeah, there you go, that's a little bit better. And also this scaling that we have here, I can probably adjust it. But yeah, there you go. So this is like a basic, really nice little patch of grass. Here's where it becomes fun. So if I take this scar value and bring it in, okay, and then we can just, what you can do is come in here to the scatter and align and lower this. See, so they're all like, facing in one direction. I can also take the initial alignment and do blend with Y. So they don't blend too much with the normals. Okay, and I can just, see, so they're all facing in one direction. Okay. And what you can do then is we can come into our sort of this bend control that we had and bend them a little bit more. See. And so if we come into the scar and just sort of like, adjust, this becomes like a rotation. Okay. See, so you can sort of like, adjust the whole thing. Yeah, see. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, and then I can come into the scatter and align and maybe just adjust it, like we'll do positive and negative, -30. See, so you get like a little bit like that. And like a little more randomization to this. See, so you can do stuff like this as well with it, so it gives you a lot of control overall, like, what you can do with it. If you turn it off, then just make sure, you take the scatter line back to 360, otherwise it will look weird, so like take this back to 360, there you go. And yeah, we had bent it a little too much, right? So let me just, bring that back. So the bend control should go back to like, these ones are standing, these can bend. Or if you just want the whole grass to be standing, so you can do this as well. So the whole grass stands. Okay. So you can so you get a lot of control overall on the whole thing. Okay, that's pretty much it for, lesson number 1. It's a pretty big lesson. Okay. So the next one, what we'll do is, we will start to demarcate areas. So let's say we want like big patches of grass and then we want like, places where you have the small grass, and then we'll start doing like the clovers and the small flowers and like scatter those around separately. Okay, so we'll do that in lesson number 2.